Hey Murdoch YouTube, welcome back to a new video with Rams fan YT. And today we are going to look at the history of Plymouth Argyle. So let me just rattle off a few facts for you. They are the only club in the entire world, as far as I know, has the name Argyle in it. Although, actually, no, I think Oakhampton Argyle is, but the only football league club to have had it. Also, the largest city in England to have never have hosted a top flight football match, as in a Premier League or First Division. They're also the most southerly and westerly league club, as in the EFL, in England, and the only professional club named Argyle. They're also nicknamed the Pilgrims after the club crest, which features the Mayflower, which carried pilgrims to Massachusetts. However, you're probably not here for them interesting trivial facts. You're probably here for their history and the history alone. Well, the club was founded in 1886 as just Argyle Football Club, and the first match took place on the 16th of October 1886 against Caxton, a team from Cornwall, and that saw the Pilgrims lose 2-0. Later that week, Argyle won for the first time, beating Dunheved College, now Launceston College, in obviously Launceston, where many of the club's first members had been educated. They won that match by 2-1. They played several friendlies against Plymouth United, but poor performances on the pitch led to the club going out of existence in 1894, before being resurrected in 1897 as one part of a general sports club called the Argyle Athletic Club. In 1898, Argyle Football Club produced its first rule book, and the club's ground was given as Marsh Mills, an area on the edge of the city of Plymouth. Much speculation surrounds the origin of the name Argyle, and one explanation is that the club was named after the Argyle and Sutherland Highlanders, army regiment with a strong football side of its own. Another theory is given by the local geography, suggesting the name comes from either the nearby public house, the Argyle Tavern, where founder members may have met, or from a local street called Argyle Terrace. Either way, the club adopted its current name when it became fully professional in 1903, joining the Southern League, under the management of Bob Jack. Argyle's first professional game was on the 1st of September 1903 against West Ham United, resulting in a 2-0 win for Argyle, with first goal being scored by Jack Pele. Their first home game as a fully professional club was on the 5th of September 1903, when they beat Northampton Town 2-0 in front of a crowd of 4,438. Argyle won the Southern League in 1913, then in 1920 entered the Football League 3rd Division as a founder member, where they finished 11th in their first season. In the summer of 1924, a Plymouth Argyle team visited South America to play some exhibition football matches in both Argentina and Uruguay. Argyle thrashed the Uruguay national team 4-0 in their first game. This was the Uruguay team that went on to win the first ever World Cup just 6 years later, you see, before pulling off another shock by beating the Argentina's national team 1-0. They then held Argentinian giants Boca Juniors to a credible 1-1 draw. Moses Russell captained the side and played in all 9 matches, and Russell's style of play caught the attention of the Argentine press. At the end of the tour, the Standard of Buenos Aires commented, "The visit of Plymouth Argyle will be best remembered by the outstanding personality and genius of Moses Russell. His effective style, precise judgment, accurate and timely clearances, powerful kicking, and no less useful work with his head, one of the most wonderful backs and one of the brainiest players ever seen on the football field." In the match against Boca Juniors on the 9th of July 1924, the Boca Juniors supporters invaded the pitch after their team had scored the opening goal and carried all 11 home players shoulder high around the stadium. After a half-an-hour delay, the referee restarted the match, but a further invasion was sparked when the referee awarded a penalty against the home side. When the match was again restarted, the Argyle players had agreed that Patsy Corcoran would take the spot kick and miss to prevent another pitch invasion. However, the ultra-competitive Russell was not prepared to accept this at all, and just before Corcoran was about to take the penalty, it was pushed aside by Russell, who took it himself and scored. This obviously did prompt a further pitch invasion by the Bock fans, and this time the match was abandoned. Back in England, uniquely between 1921 and 1926-27, Argyle finished second in the 3rd Division South 6 seasons in a row, thereby missing out on promotion because only the top side got promoted at that time. Argyle eventually won promotion though to the Football League Division 2 in 1929-30, when they topped the 3rd Division South, with attendances that season regularly reaching 20,000. Manager Bob Jack resigned in 1937, having spent a grand total of 27 years in charge of the Pilgrims. 11 years earlier, in 1928, David Jack, who began his career with Argyle in 1919 but left in 1920, joined Arsenal from Bolton Wanderers for a fee of £10,890, which made him the most expensive player in the world at the time. He was also the first player to score at Wembley Stadium. After the Second World War or World War II, Argyle's 20-year stay in the Division 2 came to an end in 1950, despite the efforts of inspirational captain Jack Chisholm. However, they were back in the Division 2 before long, after winning the 3rd Division South in 1952. The closest they ever came to playing in the Football League First Division, the top tier at the time, was in 1952-53, when they reached 4th place in the Football League Second Division. This is their highest finish to date. In 1954-55 season, floodlights arrived at Home Park, but in 1956, Argyle went down again. The Pilgrims' reputation as a yo-yo club continued after they won Division 3, by now a National League, in 1959. The 1960s started with one of the most bizarre events in Argyle's history, and it came in the spring of 1963, when they went on a mini tour of Poland. The Pilgrims were invited to play a game as a warm-up to an international cycle race. Amazingly, 100,000 fans saw Argyle that day, the biggest crowd ever to have attended a Plymouth match. In 1965, Argyle reached the Football League Cup semi-final as a second division team for the first time in their history, but lost to Leicester City. But the decade ended disappointingly as Argyle returned to Division 3 after relegation in 1968. In March 1973, a memorable moment in Argyle's history was witnessed by 37,639 people at Home Park. Argyle played a friendly against Brazilian giant Santos Football Club, who at the time were one of the best teams in the world. That day, Santos also had arguably the best footballer of all time in their starting lineup, Pele. However, Argyle, then a 3rd division side, shocked the world with a 3-2 win. The Greens were actually 3-0 up at one stage, thanks to goals from Mike Dowling, Derek Richard and Jimmy Hinch. But a penalty scored at the Barn Park end by Pele helped Santos fight back. However, in the end they came up short and were defeated, and there was a huge pitch invasion after the final whistle after a win for the Pilgrims. In 1974, with a future England striker and Argyle manager Paul Mariner now playing for them, Argyle again reached the League Cup semi-final, this time as a 3rd division side, and Argyle drew the first leg against Manchester City 1-1, but lost the main road encounter 2-0. After spending 6 years in Division 3, Argyle finally returned to Division 2 in 1974-75, under the management of Tony Waiters. This was mainly thanks to the strike partnership of Paul Mariner and Billy Rafferty, who scored a very impressive 46 goals between them. However, they were back down again in 1977, although the decade did end on a high note in 1978-79, with Kevin Hodges making his Argyle debut, and he went on to play 620 games for the club, more than anybody else. In 1984, Plymouth reached the FA Cup semi-final despite being in the 3rd division. After a successful run in which they beat West Bromwich Albion, a top division at the time, this was 1-0 courtesy of a Tommy Tinnan goal after 58 minutes, and then beat Derby County, with the first game ending 0-0, but Argyle won replay 1-0 at the baseball ground, and they lost 1-0 to Watford in the semi-final at Villa Park, courtesy of a George Riley goal. The manager John Hall was sacked the following campaign and was replaced by Dave Smith. In 2007, Argyle got to the quarter-finals of the FA Cup, but lost 1-0 to Watford at Home Park. In the build-up to this game, many pundits and fans relived the semi-final where two teams played 23 years ago. In 1985-86, Smith's first full season in charge, Argyle finished as runners-up in Division 3, resulting in promotion. The following season, despite being a newly promoted team, Argyle finished a respectable 7th place in Division 2, thereby only just missing the division's new playoff zone and the chance to move to the First Division, now the Premier League. In 1988, Smith surprisingly left to take charge of Dundee, making way for Ken Brown to become manager. In the 1990s, a new face took over the club. Businessman Dan Macaulay became chairman, and his first major decision was to sack Dave Kemp and appoint England's record cap holder Peter Shilton as player manager in the 1991-92 season. But Shilton was unable to prevent relegation as Argyle finished 22nd in Division 2. End of the 1992-93 season, English football had a revamp. The First Division of the top tier then became the Premiership, and the Division 2 of the second tier became Division 1, Division 3 the third tier was now Division 2, and so on. As a result, Argyle was still in Division 2, but it was now the third tier instead of the second. In 1992-93, Argyle finished in mid-table in the third tier. But Peter Shilton's side finished third the following campaign, as a result of playing some excellent football, thereby qualifying for the playoffs. But Argyle were defeated in the semi-final by Burnley, which saw the start of a fierce rivalry between the two clubs. The Pilgrims suffered even more disappointment in 1994-95, as Shilton parted company with the club, and they were eventually relegated to Division 3, and that's the fourth tier, for the first time in their history. Player Steve McCall became the club's manager on a short-term deal after Shilton's departure. But at the end of his season, his contract was not renewed, and Neil Warnock stepped in as his successor. At the end of the 1995-96 season, Warnock took Plymouth to Division 3 playoff glory in his first campaign as manager, with a semi-final being a memorable affair, certainly to say the least. Argyle played Colchester United and were 1-0 down from the first leg, but won 3-1 at Home Park in the second, meaning the Pilgrims were going to Wembley for the first time in their history. A header from Ronnie Morge on the 65-minute mark gave Argyle a 1-0 win over Darlington at the National Team Stadium. But Warnock was sacked within a year as the club narrowly avoided being relegated back to the basement division. Mick Jones became his successor, and at that season, in February 1997, Argyle participated in the Battle of Saltygate. This is in a 2-1 win at Chesterfield. An 88th-minute fight broke out, involving all 20 outfield players. Heard of a scrap, but that just sounds quite interesting. That Chesterfield's Darren Carr and Kevin Davis and Plymouth's Tony James and Richard Logan were all sent off. To make matters even worse, Argyle's Wembley hero, Ronnie Morge, had already been sent off in the 36th minute. It was the first time in Football League history that 5 players were sent off in one game. The following season, Argyle went down under Jones, and his successor Kevin Hodges, the club record appearance holder, lasted 3 years before a failure to attain promotion or even a playoff place cost him his job. At this point, Argyle were in danger of going bust, and it was the lowest point in their history. The appointment of Paul Sturrock as manager in November 2000 marked a turning point in Argyle's history. He saved the club from relegation out of the Football League, as they were 4th from bottom when he became manager, and finished 12th in his first season. and following campaign proved to be the most successful in the club's history, as they went on to win the Division 3 title. Although the season did not start well for the Greens, after defeats against Shrewsbury Town 1-0, Watford 1-0 in the League Cup, and Rochdale 2-1. But Argyle's first win of the 2001-2 season came in style, as they came from 2-0 down to win 3-2 at Rushden and Diamonds. Argyle were then unbeaten in the league for another 19 games before losing 2-1 at Scunthorpe United. On the 17th of November, Plymouth faced non-league Whitby Town in the FA Cup first round and were held to a 1-1 draw, and only just beating them 3-2 in the replay at Home Park. Nonetheless, their excellent league form continued, and promotion was sealed with 2 games to spare as Argyle won 4-1 at Darlington on the last day against Darlington. On the last day of the season, Argyle defeated Cheltenham Town 2-0 to finish the season with a club and league record of 102 points to clinch the Division 3 title. It also saw goalkeeper Romain Leroux and the team gain a record 28 clean sheets that season. In 2002-03, they narrowly missed out on the Division 2 playoffs, finishing 2 places outside it in 8th. That season started well for them, but some disappointing results against several teams near the bottom of the table saw them finish 16 points off 6th place. Plymouth's best results saw them hammer Peterborough United 6-1 in March. Argyle were one of the favourites to win the Division 2 title ahead of the 2003-04 season, and they proved everyone right as they earned their second promotion in 3 years. In the early stages of the campaign, Argyle were hanging around the mid-table point, but a run in October saw the Pilgrims climb into first place. They thumped Tranmere Rovers 6-0 at home before a 4-0 win against local rivals Bristol City in the Football League Trophy. Sturrock's side then won 5-1 at fellow High Flyers Port Vale, and a 3-1 win at Sheffield Wednesday put the Greens top of the league. On the 3rd of January, Argyle picked up their joint record win after beating Chesterfield 7-0, scoring the fastest 5 goals in English football after just 17 minutes. But Sturrock surprisingly moved to Southampton in March 2004, meaning Kevin Summerfield briefly took charge of the club. But Bobby Williamson was appointed manager soon after promotion as a division, promotion as Division 2 champions was perhaps uniquely in Plymouth's first game under the management of Williamson, a 2-0 defeat of Queen's Park Rangers, in which Mickey Evans and David Freo both scored in the final 9 minutes of the game. Argyle's first game in the newly rebranded Championship, now the second tier of course, saw them draw 0-0 at home to Millwall, who were FA Cup finalists the season before. Argyle's strong start continued and they sat top of the table, their highest ever position, but only briefly though, after a 1-0 win at Cardiff City. But their impressive run failed to continue as a long string of defeats followed, although they did win with a 2-1 win at Wigan Athletic, who eventually finished second and won promotion. And they also had a 3-0 success over Sheffield United. Plymouth's biggest win of 2004-05 resulted in a 5-1 home win against Brighton in March. The club secured survival 5 games before the end of the season with a 3-0 win away to Nottingham Forest and eventually finished 17th, 5 places but only 3 points above the drop zone. The 2005-06 season started with a 2-1 win at Reading, but went on to win the league with 106 points and only lost twice. So I think that just proves how impressive that feat actually was. As striker Nick Chadwick scored in the dying moments of the game. But after that, Argyle struggled and Bobby Williamson was sacked as manager. His assistant, Jockey Scott, became caretaker manager. Bears reign started with a 2-0 loss at Norwich City before gaining a 1-1 draw at Home Park against fellow relegation rivals Crewe Alexandra. The next game saw the Pilgrims earn only their second win of the season with a 1-0 win over rivals Burnley, with veteran striker Mickey Evans scoring a 46th minute goal. Scott's final game in charge resulted in a 2-1 loss at League Two side Barnet in the second round of the League Cup. Tony Pulis was appointed as manager just a few days later, and his first game in charge was a 0-0 draw away at Southampton. It was Argyle's first point at Southampton for 28 years, but that was followed with a 2-0 defeat at Sheffield United, who went on to earn promotion for Premier League that season. And that result saw the Pilgrims slip into the relegation zone. But the turning point in Argyle's season was on the 1st of October, and was a 2-1 win at home to Pulis' former club, Stoke City, as Hungarian international Akos Buzsaki scored a 77th minute winner. On the 17th of December, Nick Chadwick scored Argyle's fastest ever goal after 11 seconds against Crystal Palace, and Tony Capaldi scored another in the last few seconds of the game to make it 2-0. Many believe that these two consecutive goals are the most wildly separated in any football match, but Pulis gained a reputation for being a boring manager, as most of Argyle's games ended in a scoreless draws or a narrow wins. Argyle's biggest win of the season was a 3-1 success at home to Coventry City, and that game also saw on-loan striker Vincent Pericard score a hat-trick on his full debut. Some memorable results for the Green Army that season was the 2-0 win against high-flying Wolverhampton Wanderers and a 0-0 draw at Leeds United, who went on to reach the playoff final for Millennium Stadium, but lost 3-0 to Watford. The final game of the campaign was also the last for the striker Mickey Evans, who would never again play for Argyle. In a home game against Ipswich Town, with a score at 1-1, Evans scored with a header on 57 minutes to give Argyle a win. In total, Evans played a total of 432 times for his hometown club in 2 spells, scoring 81 goals in the process. The Pilgrims finished 14th that season, in the end well clear of the relegation zone. However, Pulis was on his way out of the exit door very soon, returning to Stoke to make way for Ian Holloway to join the club. In summer 2006, in one of Holloway's first games in charge, Argyle played a pre-season friendly against 9-time European champions Real Madrid in Austria, as both clubs were training in the country at the time. Argyle, captained by Hasni Al-Jofri, put up a fairly brave fight and only lost the game 1-0, courtesy of a 75th minute penalty converted by Brazilian international Julio Baptista. Madrid were managed by future England manager Fabio Capello, and they had Ivan Helguera, Guti, Antonio Cassano, Raul Bravo, Thomas Graveson, and Javier Portillo in their starting lineup. The official Plymouth Argyle website said that it was a proud day for anyone with green in their heart. In late 2006, Viz magazine published a one-off comic strip called The Pirates of Plymouth Argyle, depicting Plymouth Argyle as a shipload of 18th century pirates. Several of the characters in the strips were given the names of then current players on the real Plymouth Argyle team. Ian Holloway's first competitive match in charge was a 1-1 home draw to Wolves, with striker Barry Hales scoring a debut goal. And when at Sunderland soon followed, as the Green Army travelled the longest distance to an away game that season. And despite going 1-0 down after just 30 seconds, Nick Chadwick scored 9 minutes from time to give Pilgrims a 2-3 win. On the 12th of September, Cardiff City visited Home Park. And despite being 3-0 down after 49 minutes, Argyle came back to draw 3-3. Plymouth's strong start to the 2006-7 Championship campaign continued, and they were soon looking capable of qualifying for the playoffs. The January transfer window saw considerable activity in the transfer market, with the arrival of Hungarians Krisztián Timár and Peter Halamosi, initially on loan but both signed permanently in May 2007, as part of an option to buy agreement. The signing of Rory Fallon from the Swansea City and Kevin Gallen and Scott Sinclair on loan from Queen's Park Rangers and Chelsea respectively. But their form dipped in the second half of the season. After they finished February in 12th place, a wide gap opened between them and the teams in the top six, making their promotion bid more difficult than it had appeared earlier in the season. Despite this disappointment, the team made significantly better progress than in recent seasons in the FA Cup by reaching the quarter-finals. They beat League Two Peterborough United at the second attempt in the third round, then a solo goal from on-loan youngster Scott Sinclair, which was officially voted goal of the round, helped them to a 2-0 win at Barnet in the fourth round. They beat Championship League leaders Derby County 2-0 the next, but in the quarter-finals, they were drawn at home to Premier League strugglers Watford and lost out to Hamia Boaza Strike against Verona Play. After a run of 5 consecutive wins, Argyle finished the 2006-7 season in 11th place, their highest league finish for 20 years. Before the start of the 2007-8 season, manager Ian Holloway said that Plymouth were capable of earning promotion to the Premier League for the first time in their history. And they made a good start to the new season, with a 2-3 win at Hull City, who actually went on to win the playoffs. The club's good start continued as they stayed near the playoff places for the first few months. However, on the 21st of November 2007, Ian Holloway controversially resigned to take charge of Leicester City. On the 27th of November 2007, Paul Sturk resigned from Swindon Town to rejoin Plymouth Argyle. Their first game back resulted in a 3-0 win against Scunthorpe United. Sturrock arrived at a time where many key players were being approached by other clubs. Sturrock could do nothing to stop Sylvan Ebanks-Blake, David Norris and youngster Dan Gosling leaving for Wolves, Ipswich and Everton respectively. The January 2008 transfer window marked an important point in the recent history of the club. On the 9th of February, the Green Army went to the Walker Stadium to face Holloway's Leicester. The game was also live on Sky Sports, and to add some more spice to the game, Argyle chairman Paul Stapleton accused Holloway of luring some of the club's star players away, and both sets of fans wore Holloway t-shirts with "Holloway is a liar" and other slogans written on some of the Argyle fan shirts. Anti-Holloway chants could be heard from the away end constantly, and a goal from Peter Helmosi on 34 minutes gave the Pilgrims a 1-0 win. Leicester were eventually relegated on the final day of the season, with Holloway being sacked. And I'm sure many Plymouth fans would say justice was served. That victory was followed with a good run of form from Argyle, including a 2-1 win away at local rivals Bristol City, with Rory Fallon scoring twice. But Argyle only won one of their final 7 games, meaning that they missed out on the playoffs, but finished 10th, continuing the club's unprecedented record of improving their league position every season since the turn of the millennium. In the FA Cup 2007-8, despite losing 2-1 at Fratton Park in the fourth round, Argyle had the honour of being the only team to score against Portsmouth, the eventual winners. With many more of the team's key players leaving home park during the summer of 2008, the following season promised to be a challenging one for the club. The Pilgrims began the season with a string of poor results, but a 2-1 win at Watford in mid-September sparked a good run of form for Argyle as Stoke's new side began to come together. The Scottish manager celebrated his 100th win in charge of the club from 2 spells, with a 4-0 thrashing of former club obviously of his, Sheffield Wednesday, at home park. It was starting to look as if Argyle would be put in another challenge for the playoffs, but consistency proved to be a problem. A 0-0 draw at struggling Southampton started an awful run for Argyle, and they finished 2008 in 15th place, now 8 points adrift of the playoffs. On the 3rd of January 2009, Argyle travelled to the recently built Emirates Stadium to play against Premiership giants Arsenal in the FA Cup third round. Arsenal scored 2 quick goals after a break, but Carl Duguid scored after 53 minutes to pull one back for the Greens. But Gunners striker Robbie Van Persie scored his second of the game after 5 minutes from time to give Arsenal a 3-1 win. Argyle's league form then plummeted throughout the early stages of the new year, and they had to wait 9 league games into the 2009 into the year 2009 to get their first win of the year. And it was an extremely important one as well, as it was a 1-0 success at eventual league winners Wolves. On loan, Blackburn Rovers midfielder Paul Gallagher scored the only goal after just 44 seconds with an overhead kick. That was followed by a 2-1 win at home to Watford, with Gallagher scoring twice. Although Argyle couldn't keep their revival for long, as a run of 3 consecutive defeats put them in serious danger of relegation. But a late goal from defender Gary Sawyer gave them a crucial 1-0 home win against fellow strugglers at Blackpool. I don't actually know if that was home or not. And that was followed by a 4-0 win against Coventry City. All 4 goals came in the first half, which looked to have secured survival. And Plymouth picked up a 1-1 draw at Birmingham, who ended up getting promoted. But a 3-0 home loss against Doncaster put Argyle right back into danger of relegation. After a 0-0 draw at QPR and Norwich's failure to beat Reading 2 games before the end of the season, Argyle's survival was confirmed, and the club finished 21st in the league table, 5 points and 1 place clear of relegation places. Argyle's first season where they didn't improve their league position for 8 years. At a packed press conference on the 2nd July 2009, Sir Roy Gardner took over a chairman's role with Keith Todd, who has the CBE, Yasuaki Kagami, and George Sinan appointed as board directors. Argyle scored just 5 minutes into the 2009-10 season, with Christian Timar heading home at Crystal Palace, but the match finished 1-1. A last-minute own goal from Kaspars Gorks gave them another 1-1 home draw at home to QPR in the next game. Argyle then went on a run of 7 consecutive losses, despite putting in some decent performances. However, effort was rewarded on the 29th of September after a 2-1 win at newly promoted Peterborough United. And that was followed with another 2-1 success, this time against Scunthorpe United. Former player Paul Mariner was appointed the club's head coach in late October, after assistant manager Kevin Summerfield left when he was told that his current contract would not be renewed. Mariner's first game on the sidelines was at home to one of his former clubs, Ipswich Town, and resulted in a 1-1 draw. That was followed by a shock 1-0 win at promotion-chasing Middlesbrough in Gordon Strachan's first game as Borough manager, with Jamie Mackie scoring a 64th minute goal, and a 2-1 home win over Doncaster Rovers, with goals from on-loan midfielder Alan Judge and Rory Fallon, both getting their 3rd goals of the season. Paul Sturrock's second stint in charge came to an end on the 10th of December 2009, when a press conference confirmed that he was relieved of his managerial duties due to 2 years of poor results and fan unrest, and had taken up a business support role, working alongside Director and Chief Executive Keith Todd. Head coach Paul Mariner was placed in charge of the team's affairs, and Sturrock's last game in charge was a 1-0 defeat at Swansea City on the 8th of December. However, Mariner lost his first 2 games, and his first fixture resulted in a 2-0 loss at Preston North End, and then Argyle defeated 1-0 at home to Coventry, leaving the Pilgrims bottom of the table 6 points adrift of safety. On Boxing Day, Argyle were away at local rivals Cardiff City, and it was the first meeting between the sides of the new Cardiff City Stadium. Cardiff were 4th in the league table at the time, while Argyle were bottom. But fullback Gary Sawyer scored an 84th minute winner to give the visitors a shock 1-0 victory. 2 days later, Argyle thrashed relegation rivals Reading 4-1 at Home Park to go 2 points adrift of safety. The Pilgrims' first game of 2010 was at home to Championship League leaders Newcastle United in the 3rd round of the FA Cup. The game ended 0-0, but Newcastle won 3-0 in replay. Victor Moses found the back of the net as Crystal Palace won 1-0 at home park in the next game along in the season. Striker Jamie Mackay scored an 82nd minute winner to give Argyle a 1-0 win at home to fellow strugglers Derby in midweek. Days later, Argyle went 1-0 up away to Sheffield Wednesday, another side in relegation danger, but then went on to lose 2-1. They then lost 1-0 against second place West Bromwich Albion. However, new loan signing David Stockdale did save a late penalty to restore some pride for Argyle. But Stockdale, on loan from Fulham, was unable to save Shane Long's last gasp spot kick at the Madejski Stadium, as the Pilgrims lost 2-1 at relegation rivals Reading. That result meant Argyle were 8 points off safety. However, the Pilgrims travelled to face Barnsley in their next game, which proved to be a memorable one for the Green Army, with Hugo Colace giving Barnsley the lead just before half-time. But Argyle responded well in the second period, and on the 64th minute mark, the team captain, Carl Fletcher, equalised with a strike from just outside the box. 10 minutes later, Jamie Mackay fired the visitors in front. With 83 minutes on the clock, Rory Fallon scored with a lob from the 35 yards mark out to give Argyle a 3-1 win at Oakwell. It was the first time Argyle came from behind to win a game since Boxing Day in 2007, when the Greens beat QPR 2-1 at home park. That was the last time they did it. So it was also the first time they won by 2 goals or more away from home since 19th of February 2008, when Argyle won 2-0 at Southampton. Yala Balassi, making his Argyle debut after a season on loan at Barnet, was given the Man of the Match award. January signing Damian Johnson scored his first Argyle goal just days later in a 1-1 draw at home to Swansea. However, it proved to be controversial, with the host trailing through Darren Pratley's sublime 46-minute goal. They were awarded a penalty 5 minutes from time. Jamie Mackay took it, but it was well saved by Doris de Vries. The Devon linesman ordered the spot kick to be retaken, and Johnson took it this time. But yet again, De Vries was equal to it, but Johnson converted the rebound. In the next game, Craig Noon's 39th minute header cancelled out Kari Anarson's own goal 7 minutes earlier, as the Greens came from behind to get a result for the third game in a row after drawing 1-1 with Leicester City. But the Greens' good run failed to continue after an unlucky 4-3 defeat at Sheffield United, as Argyle were 3-0 down before coming back to 3-2, but then 4-2 down before the game finished 4-3. A 1-1 draw at home to Preston North End and a 2-0 loss at fellow strugglers Queen's Park Rangers. But on the 17th of March, Argyle picked up a crucial 3 points with a thrilling 3-2 win over local rivals Bristol City. The Greens were 2-0 up at half-time through Chris Clark with his first ever league goal for the club, and Bradley Wright Phillips with also his first ever goal for the club. The 2 Nicky Maynard strikes made it 2-2. When it looked like Argyle were heading for another draw or even a defeat, team captain Carl Fletcher struck in the first minute of injury time to give Argyle a sweet 3-2 win. Yet again, Argyle's run was halted after a 2-1 defeat at fellow strugglers Scunthorpe United, but they then impressively won 2-0 away at Ipswich, thanks to goals from Bradley Wright Phillips and Joe Mason, to move within 3 points at safety. However, despite a 2-1 win at high-flying Doncaster Rovers, defeats to Middlesbrough of 2-0, Watford 1-0 and Newcastle United 2-0 sealed their relegation fate, while simultaneously allowing Newcastle to claim the championship title, with 2 games to go. Argyle then went on to lose their remaining 2 games away to Nottingham Forest and Peterborough United. Argyle ended the season as the second lowest scoring team in the division, with only Swansea City scoring fewer, as well as winning the fewest games at home. The club's 6-year stay in the second tier of the Football League was over. On the 24th of June 2010, former England midfielder Peter Reid was appointed manager for the forthcoming season. Peter Reid's career at Argyle got off to a good start as his team beat title favourite Southampton at St Mary's Stadium on the opening day of the season. Argyle won the game by 1-0, with Luke Summerfield scoring a 47th minute winner. Throughout the late summer and autumn, a trend of strong away performances and poor home performances began to appear. The Pilgrims won 3-2 away to Swindon on the 28th of September in a game where they led 2-0 before Swindon pulled it back to 2-2. Then Bradley Wright Phillips scored his second of the match to give Argyle a 3-2 injury time win. In the same week, they lost 1-0 at home to Hartlepool United, and that meant that Argyle had lost 4 of their first 6 matches at home. Argyle's season was lacking consistency. This was summed up by Argyle's 3-1 home win against local rivals Bristol Rovers on the 2nd of November 2010, followed by 4 straight defeats, one of which included a 2-1 injury time loss to bitter rivals Exeter City in the Football League Trophy Area quarter-final. That was the first meetings between the two sides in 8 years, with Argyle winning the last fixture 3-0 at Home Park in February 2002. On the 20th of November, following a 2-1 home defeat to Brentford, newly relegated Argyle were 20th in League One, just 1 place and 3 points above relegation zone. On the 23rd of November, Argyle came from 1-0 down to beat fellow strugglers Dagenham and Redbridge 2-1 at Home Park, lifting them up to 15th. However, just 4,960 were present at that game. That was Argyle's lowest league attendance since they were in the bottom tier of the English Football League. Not long after, the programmes were presented with a winding up order by HMRC and appeared in court on the 8th of December, only to earn a 63-day adjournment so they could pay the taxes they owed. 3 days later, after a financial incident, Argyle picked up a memorable victory, arguably their best performance of the season, resulting in them beating fierce Devon rivals Exeter City 2-0 at Home Park in a league fixture. A total of 14,347 attended the game, the biggest gate at Home Park in 3 years, and also a sellout. Both goals came from Bradley Wright Phillips, who, as of the 17th of December 2010, was League One's top scorer with 12 goals. On the 24th of December, it was announced that Keith Todd, who has an MBA, as I already said, had stood down as executive director, to be replaced temporarily by Paul Stapleton. Todd will, however, remain on the board of directors for the meanwhile. On the 27th of December 2010, it was announced that BBC star Sir Roy Gardner had relinquished his role as chairman and stood down from the board. On the 4th of January, Argyle propelled themselves to 12th in League One, their highest position since August, after coming from 2-0 down at half-time to beat West Country rivals Bristol Rovers 3-2, thanks to goals from Bradley Wright Phillips, Joe Mason and Stefan Zuba. On the 21st of February, the club issued a notice of intention to appoint an administrator and were immediately docked 10 points by the Football League, which dropped them into the bottom of the League One table after poor results continued. The club officially went into administration on the 4th of March, and Brendan Guilfoyle of P&A Partnership was appointed to run the club and search for a buyer. A 1-0 loss away to Exeter City at St James Park on the 30th of April, with the only goal being scored by James Dunn, left Argyle on the brink of a second successive relegation. Exeter's second win of the season against Argyle, combined with the day's other results, meant that Argyle must win both of their remaining games and rely on other teams' results to avoid relegation. Relegation was confirmed 2 days later, following a 3-1 home defeat against Southampton on the 2nd of May. Plymouth had a poor start to the following season. As a result, Peter Reid was sacked on the 18th of September, whilst bottom of League Two, with midfielder Carl Fletcher taking over as caretaker manager. James Brent's Heron Group agreed to a deal with the administrators to buy the club, with Peter Ridsdale also confirming that he would leave the club when the deal had been completed. The Football League then banned any loan signings until the deal had been completed on the 6th of October. Further problems occurred, with the administrators threatening to quit the club. The PFA agreed a repayment plan for the employees to receive their wages, as well as former manager Peter Reid agreeing to a deal. Argyle also agreed to a deal to sell Home Park back to Plymouth Council on the 14th of October for £1.6 million, and then they had to pay £135,000 a year for the rent. On the 28th of October, the deal with James Brent was approved, and he would take his seat at the club when Home Park was sold. Plymouth officially exited administration on the 31st of October after the takeover was complete. The team's form greatly improved after the takeover, and while the eventual league finish of 21st was the lowest in the club's history, they still secured survival with 3 games to spare, which was quite an achievement considering they had been well adrift at the bottom for the first half of the campaign. In the following season, Argyle started looking to climb back up the Football League, but got off to a shaky start under Carl Fletcher, who continued to take charge of the squad after the summer. The club found themselves bottom of the league table again at the end of the Christmas period, and consequently, Fletcher was sacked on the 1st of January 2013 and replaced on the 6th of January by John Sheridan. In the second half of the season, the club was again narrowly saved from relegation, and they finished 21st for the second season in a row. Sheridan then agreed a 3-year contract to continue as Argyle manager, and in his first full season in charge, the club finished 10th, an achievement which displayed great improvement from the previous 2 seasons. Argyle had a far stronger start to their 4th consecutive season in League Two, winning 4 games consecutively for the first time since 2008. Despite a poor run of results over Christmas and the New Year, including a 0-0 draw against 10-man York City, Argyle looked set to clinch a League Two playoff position, thanks to a 3-2 home win against Tranmere Rovers, a result which at the same time relegated the away side out of the Football League for the first time in 94 years. Derek Adams was appointed in 2015, and by Christmas, Argyle were top of the league. But by February, they had slipped down to second. A 2-2 draw with Cambridge United made it impossible for Argyle to achieve automatic promotion. After a 2-2 draw with Portsmouth, Argyle secured a place in the EFL League Two playoff final via a 91st minute header from Peter Hartley. After a poor row of performances in the final, Argyle was surprisingly beaten 2-0 by AFC Wimbledon from the 78th and 98th minute goals. The 2016-17 season saw Argyle for the second season in a row at the top of the table at the midpoint of the season at Christmas. But Argyle slipped down to a second place finish after a poor run of form after Christmas. With 4 games to go, Argyle were only needed 1 point to seal promotion. But a comprehensive 6-1 victory against Newport County on the 17th of April in front of a packed Home Park to make it impossible for Luton Town to catch up. They therefore were promoted to League One after 6 years in the 4th tier. On the last day of the season, Argyle had the chance to go up as champions, but after a 1-1 draw with Grimsby Town, the title was handed to Portsmouth via goal difference. The Villains got off to an appalling start to their League One campaign, though, with only racking up 5 points in their first 11 games and receiving 4 red cards and 4 consecutive home games, sitting rock bottom. 4 points adrift as safety, even 11 games in. And with 2-1 defeat at home to Fleetwood, added to Argyle's woes, pushing their winless run to 10 games, racking 2 points from a possible 13 at time. Some fans disputed about the board sacking Derek Adams, even after taking them up in the previous season, due to poor tactics and game management. The turn of December 2017 into 2018 saw Argyle record 16 wins, 6 draws, and only 5 losses to escape relegation and finish 7th, only missing out on the playoff spot by 3 points. As early as March 2016, Plymouth-born but American-based businessman Simon Hallett had invested into Argyle and hence joined the board of directors. Hallett later increased his stake in the club, as well as offering a long-term minimum interest loan to the club to help refurbish the Mayflower Grandstand. In August 2018, Hallett became the majority shareholder in the club, with James Brent reducing his stake as well as stepping down as chairman. Hallett had originally appointed David Felwick, who has the CBA, as Argyle's chairman-elect, but he cited personal reasons for being unable to take over. So Hallett took over as chairman on the 1st November 2018. On the field, it took Argyle until their 12th league game to secure their first win of the 2018-19 season, a 1-0 victory over AFC Wimbledon. The form of the top goal scorer Freddie Ladapo was a shining light in a disappointing first half of the season, with a standout lone point of a 5-1 defeat away to Luton Town. The turn of the new year saw Argyle pick up form, winning 6 of their first 9 games of 2019 and losing just 2 of the first 12, culminating in a 5-1 win over Rochdale on the 23rd of February. This one coincided with the return of Carl Leveron in between the sticks in place of Matt Macy. An injury to Leveron and a stop-start march followed, with Argyle winning late on against Shrewsbury Town at home before giving away a 2-1 and then a 2-0 lead to Bristol Rovers, and then Blackpool in the dying minutes to draw both matches. What seemingly 6 points dropped to 2 proved costly as Argyle's league form dipped, losing every single game in April, and following a 5-1 defeat at Accrington Stanley, which left the club in the EFL League One relegation zone with just 1 match of the season left to play. Derek Adams and his assistant Paul Watton were relieved of their duties. Kevin Nance-Kival took over as caretaker manager for the first game of the season. And despite winning 3-2 against Scunthorpe United, results elsewhere at games involving Southend United and AFC Wimbledon saw Argyle relegated to EFL League 2. End of the 2019-20 season, Hallett appointed Ryan Lowe as Derek Adams' successor, signing the then 40-year-old Livy Pudlian and his assistant manager Stephen Schumacher from newly promoted but financially troubled Bury. Hallett also increased his stake in the club once more to 94%, taking over James Brent's remaining shares, as both he and his daughter Natasha Brent stepped down from Argyle's board, and ending Brent's 6-year spell at the club. Now, from the website I'm getting it from, there is little information missing, so I'll just tell you about that. So, first of all, there was, I think they may have finished Mayflower Grandstand renovation. It was meant to finish in 2020, ahead of the Plymouth 2020 Mayflower celebrations, but I think temporary seating is in place on that, because that was the case for the FA Cup third round replay versus Liverpool. And the seating was kept in place for the next home match for League 2 game versus Devon rivals Exeter City, but tickets were not on sale to the general public. And shortly after this game, the seating was removed. So I don't know what's happening with that at the moment. But they did manage to also get promoted last season from League 2 into League 1. We're doing quite well in playoffs in League 1 at the moment. This is an awfully long one, so I'm sorry for waffling on a bit. Obviously, no video on Friday, as I mentioned before. History of the club, there will be an episode about history of Portsmouth next Monday, though. But goodbye for now.